Crumbs of dignity know me. Winters wiped flour from her brow and glanced at the clock. 2:17 p.m. She was already late. Carefully sliding the 3-tier cake into her delivery van, she whispered a silent prayer that the delicate sugar flowers wouldn't collapse during the drive to Westlake Tower. "Hold together for me. Just this once," she murmured, securing the box with bungee cords. Her small bakery, Sweet Reverie, was 3 months behind on rent. This delivery to one of Seattle's most prestigious tech companies could either save her business or become the final nail in its coffin. The autumn rain pelted her windshield as she navigated downtown traffic, knuckles white against the steering wheel. 6 years of culinary school and apprenticeships under renowned pastry chefs had led to this desperately delivering cakes while dodging collection calls. When she arrived at Westlake Tower, a security guard directed her to the service entrance. "Delivery personnel aren't permitted through the main lobby," he said, barely looking up from his monitor. Naomi bit back a retort and wheeled her cake toward the service elevator. The doors opened to reveal a hurried-looking woman. "You must be from the bakery. Thank God you're here. The reception starts in 20 minutes, and Mr. Reed is already asking about the cake." The woman, Olivia, according to her name badge, led Naomi through a maze of corridors. "This way. We'll need to cut through the main conference area. It's the only way to reach the event space now that they've closed off the south corridor for renovations." The conference room was filled with people in tailored suits and sleek dresses, mingling before some kind of presentation. A massive screen displayed the logo for Horizon Technologies alongside images of what appeared to be a revolutionary new device. Naomi carefully maneuvered her cart around clusters of people, aware of how out of place she looked in her flower-smudged apron. Just a few more yards to the door on the opposite side. She didn't see him until it was too late. A tall man stepped backward directly into her path as she tried to pass. The collision sent her stumbling forward, and despite her desperate grab for the cake box, her hands smashed through the side, fingers sinking into layers of buttercream and fondant. Worse still, as she fell against him, a spray of colorful frosting decorated the back of his impeccably tailored charcoal suit.
"Oh, what?"
The man spun around, his expression morphing from surprise to disgust as he registered the pastel smears across his jacket. The room fell silent. "I'm so sorry," Naomi stammered, frantically reaching for the napkins in her apron pocket. "Please let me. Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice cut through the silence like ice. "This presentation begins in 15 minutes, and I'm scheduled to unveil our new product to every major investor in the tech industry." Naomi recognized him then from the magazine covers and business news segments. Harrison Reed, the 34-year-old CEO of Horizon Technologies. His cold gray eyes swept over her, taking in the worn sneakers, the faded jeans beneath her apron, the messy bun of auburn hair. "Is this how you run your business? Careening around like a child without watching where you're going?" He brushed at the frosting, only managing to smear it further. "It was an accident," Naomi said, her voice smaller than she intended. "I can fix the cake. Fix it. Look at it," he gestured, toward the cart where her beautiful creation now listed to one side, a gaping hole in its surface. "This isn't fixable. This is incompetence." Heat flooded Naomi's cheeks as whispers rippled through the crowd. Someone snickered. "I'll refund your company, of course," she managed, fighting back tears. "That's not the point," Harrison said, his voice dripping with disdain. "The point is that some people clearly aren't cut out for professional environments. Perhaps you should reconsider your career choices." As Olivia hurried Harrison away to find a replacement jacket, Naomi stood frozen, the weight of public humiliation crushing her chest. She mechanically packed up the ruined cake. Deaf to the sympathetic murmurs of nearby onlookers, back in her van, she finally allowed the tears to fall, her hands trembling against the steering wheel. The refund would drain her last reserves. Sweet Reverie wouldn't survive the month, yet as the initial shock faded, something else took its place as slow-burning anger. Who was Harrison Reed to judge her entire worth based on one mistake? The arrogance, the casual cruelty of his dismissal. "Reconsider my career choices?" she whispered, starting the engine. "We'll see about that." Bitter beginnings 3 weeks after the Westlake Tower disaster, Naomi stared at the final notice from her landlord. The refund to Horizon Technologies had depleted her already meager savings, and despite working 18-hour days, she couldn't seem to catch up. She'd let go of her only part-time employee, Javier, promising to rehire him when things improved, a promise that felt increasingly hollow. The morning rush had dwindled to a trickle. By 10 a.m., Naomi was arranging a fresh batch of cardamom buns in the display case when the bell above the door chimed. Without looking up, she launched into her customary greeting. "Welcome to Sweet Reverie, where we make every day a little more." The words died in her throat as she registered the man standing in her bakery. Harrison Reed looked different in casual clothes, dark jeans, and a simple gray sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and he carried none of the commanding presence he'd wielded at Westlake Tower. "Hello," he said quietly. "I was hoping we could talk." Naomi's first instinct was to tell him to leave, but curiosity overrode her anger. "About what exactly? Come to critique my career choices some more?" A flash of discomfort crossed his face. "I deserve that. What happened at Westlake I was out of line, you think?" Naomi crossed her arms. "Your little public takedown cost. Me, my last regular corporate client." Word spreads fast in this business. Harrison nodded, his gaze drifting to the nearly empty display cases. The bakery's struggle was evident in the sparse offerings and the worn edges of the once charming decor. "That's partly why I'm here." He stepped forward, placing a sleek folder on the counter. "Horizon is hosting its 5th anniversary celebration. Next month, 400 guests, 3 days of events. We need a local bakery to handle the desserts." Naomi stared at him. "And you thought of me? The incompetent cake destroyer?" "I thought of someone who created the most visually stunning cake I've ever seen, even if I only glimpsed it before." He trailed off, looking genuinely remorseful. "The head of our events team looked you up afterward. Your portfolio is impressive." Naomi's mind raced. A contract of that size would save Sweet Reverie, pay off her debts, and give her breathing room to rebuild. But working with Harrison Reed, the man who'd humiliated her? "Why the change of heart?" she asked, suspicion edging her voice. Harrison hesitated, an unreadable expression crossing his face. "Let's just say the presentation that day didn't go as planned. The product we were unveiling had critical flaws we hadn't addressed. Your interruption was actually a blessing in disguise. It gave our engineers time to identify the issue before we went public. So I saved you from embarrassment, and now you're throwing me a pity contract?" "It's not pity," he replied, tension creeping into his voice. "It's business. We need someone exceptional, and despite our unfortunate first meeting, I believe you're that person." The bell chimed again as elderly Mrs. Dominguez entered, one of the few loyal customers who still visited daily for her almond croissant. Naomi forced a smile and served her, acutely aware of Harrison watching the transaction. After Mrs. Dominguez left, Harrison spoke again. "Look, I understand your hesitation, but the budget for this event is substantial." He named a figure that made Naomi's eyes widen. "Half paid up front." Naomi glanced at the final notice tucked beneath the register. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. "I'll need creative control," she said finally. "I won't be micromanaged on designs or flavors." "That seems reasonable," Harrison replied, though she noticed a slight tightening around his mouth. Control wasn't something he relinquished easily. "I'll need to bring Javier back. I can't handle this volume alone." "Done." Naomi took a deep breath. "One more thing. I want a public acknowledgement at the event recognition that Sweet Reverie is the creator of everything served." Harrison studied her, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "You drive a hard bargain, Ms. Winters?" "Naomi," she corrected. "If we're going to work together, you should use my name." "Naomi," he repeated, extending his hand. "Harrison." His grip was firm but not domineering. She noticed calluses on his fingers that seemed at odds with his polished appearance. "I should warn you," he added, "I have exacting standards." "So do I," Naomi replied. "And mine involve actual skill, not just the ability to belittle people. Instead of taking offense, Harrison laughed a genuine sound that transformed his face, softening the sharp angles and illuminating eyes that weren't merely gray but flecked with blue. Fair enough. Shall we discuss the details over coffee? There's a place around the corner. I can't leave the shop unattended, Naomi said, gesturing to the empty bakery. Harrison looked around, really seeing the reality of her situation. Here then. I'm buying, of course. Naomi hesitated, then nodded. As she prepared 2 cups of her special cinnamon-infused brew, she studied him surreptitiously. There was something brittle beneath his confident exterior, a tension that seemed to go beyond business concerns. When she set the coffee before him, their fingers brushed momentarily. An unexpected current passed between them, startling them both. 2 new beginnings, Harrison offered, raising his cup. 2 professional relationships, Naomi countered pointedly. And nothing more. Harrison's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Of course, it's all about the work. But as they began discussing the event, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that something more complicated than a business arrangement was brewing between them. Something that, like her most intricate recipes, would require careful handling to avoid disaster. Rising tensions? That's not what we agreed on. Harrison frowned at the sample platter Naomi had prepared, his finger tapping against the granite countertop of the Horizon Technologies test kitchen. The signature dessert should showcase our company. Colors. Your company colors are gray and electric blue, Naomi replied, fighting to keep her voice even. I'm not serving gray food, and that shade of blue requires artificial coloring I refuse to use. These blackberry lavender petit fours with silver leaf accents accomplish the same visual impact while actually tasting good. They'd been at this for 3 hours, and Naomi's patience was wearing thin. For 2 weeks, they'd managed a tentative truce, but today, Harrison had reverted to the controlling executive she'd first encountered. The board has specific expectations, he insisted. This is about brand consistency. This is about food, Naomi countered. People will remember whether it was delicious, not whether it perfectly matched your logo. Harrison ran a hand through his hair, disheveling the carefully styled dark waves. You don't understand corporate events? Everything communicates our values, including the desserts. And what values are those? Artificial ingredients and style over substance. His jaw tightened. That's unfair, is it? Naomi stepped closer, the island between them suddenly feeling too wide and too narrow simultaneously. What are you really worried about, Harrison? That the board won't like the desserts, or that you'll lose control of some tiny aspect of this perfect image you're constructing? Something vulnerable flashed across his face before his professional mask slipped back into place. We had an agreement. Creative control doesn't mean ignoring client requests. Fine. Naomi began packing up her tools with quick, angry movements. I'll create something with your precious corporate colors, but I'm noting my objections for the record. Harrison checked his watch, a habit she'd noticed occurred whenever conversations veered into uncomfortable territory. I have a meeting. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. The event is now 17 days away, and we're behind schedule. We wouldn't be behind if you hadn't rejected 3 perfectly good concepts already, Naomi muttered. He pretended not to hear, gathering his tablet and phone. Lock up when you're finished. The security team knows you have clearance. After he left, Naomi slumped against the counter, exhaustion settling into her bones. The initial payment had saved Sweet Reverie from immediate closure, and with Javier back, the day-to-day operations were running smoothly. But these planning sessions with Harrison were draining her creatively and emotionally. She packed the rejected petit fours into a container. No sense wasting good food, and headed toward the elevator. As she passed Harrison's office, she noticed the door ajar, voices carrying through the gap. The board is getting nervous, Harrison. A woman's voice, sharp and insistent. This device was supposed to revolutionize the market.
How is managed?
Instead, we've got engineers telling us the entire approach is flawed. Harrison's voice sounded weary, stripped of its usual confidence. The anniversary event. We'll reassure everyone while we recalibrate. It's not just the device. Your leadership is being questioned. First, the presentation disaster. Now, this setback. Some are suggesting you've lost your edge since Eliza's death. Naomi froze. Death. Who was Eliza? That's enough. Harrison's voice turned to ice. My personal life has no bearing on this company's success. It does when you're the face of Horizon. 3 years of isolation isn't healthy, Harrison. The board is concerned you're not the same visionary who built this company. Naomi backed away quietly, her mind spinning. She'd assumed Harrison's rigidity came from arrogance or privilege. Now she wondered if something darker lay beneath his controlled exterior. The next morning, Naomi arrived at Sweet Reverie before dawn, losing herself in the comfort of baking basics, the rhythmic kneading of dough, the precise folding of butter into pastry. By opening time, she had filled the display cases and prepared a special creation, a delicate chiffon cake with blueberry infused cream and a natural gray frosting made from black sesame and vanilla. She was closing up shop when the bell chimed. Harrison stood in the doorway, looking uncharacteristically disheveled, his normally pristine suit wrinkled as if he'd been wearing it for days. We need to talk, he said, his voice rough. I'm closing. Whatever complaint you have about today's designs can wait until tomorrow. It's not about the designs. He stepped forward, hesitating. My sister's in the hospital. Pneumonia. They're saying it's serious. The unexpected vulnerability caught Naomi off guard. I'm sorry. Is there anything I need to reschedule? Tomorrow's tasting? I'll be at the hospital. Of course. Naomi hesitated, then added, do you want company? Someone to bring food? Hospital cafeterias are terrible. Harrison looked genuinely startled by the offer. Why would you do that? I've been nothing but difficult to work with. Naomi shrugged, because that's what decent humans do when other humans are suffering. Something cracked in Harrison's composed facade. He turned away, but not before Naomi caught the sheen of moisture. In his eyes, Rebecca's all I have left, he said so quietly, she almost missed it. Our parents died when we were teenagers. After Eliza, my wife passed away from cancer 3 years ago. Rebecca was the only one who... He trailed off. Collecting himself? I can't lose her too. The revelation struck Naomi like a physical blow. The man she'd judged as cold and unfeeling had been shaped by repeated loss. You won't, she said firmly. And you're not alone in this. What hospital? The following day, Naomi arrived at Seattle General with a basket of still warm bread, homemade, soup in insulated containers, and her special comfort cookies, dark chocolate with sea salt and toffee pieces. She found Harrison in the waiting room, staring blankly at his phone, fatigue etched into every line of his face. He looked up as she approached, surprise and something softer transforming his expression. You actually came. I said I would. Naomi set the basket beside him. How is she? Stable? They're allowing visitors in an hour. He glanced at the basket. You didn't have to do this, you know. Naomi sat beside him, leaving a careful distance between them. But sometimes what we need isn't what we think we need. Harrison studied her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Like blackberry lavender petit fours instead of corporate-colored desserts. A smile tugged at Naomi's lips. It's exactly like that. Something shifted between them in that moment. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. The carefully constructed walls on both sides began to show the first hairline cracks. Tell me about your sister, Naomi said softly, as Harrison began to speak. His voice grew warmer, revealing glimpses of the man beneath the executive armor, a man who had known joy and devastating loss, who had built walls not out of arrogance, but out of fear, and in the sterile hospital waiting room, surrounded by the scent of freshly baked bread. Naomi realized that the story she thought she knew about Harrison Reed had only been the surface of a much deeper narrative. Sweet Revelations. Rebecca Reed's recovery took longer than expected, stretching from days into weeks. During that time, Naomi found herself drawn into Harrison's world in ways she hadn't anticipated. What began as daily food deliveries to the hospital evolved into long conversations in the quiet hours when Rebecca slept, revealing layers to Harrison that contradicted her initial impression. He was always the rebellious one, Harrison said one evening, showing Naomi a photo of his sister, a woman with his same gray-blue eyes, but with vibrant purple streaks in her dark hair. Brilliant software engineer who could have worked anywhere, but chose to develop accessibility apps for nonprofits instead. While you became the corporate titan, Naomi observed, passing him a thermos of chamomile tea. Someone had to be the responsible one after our parents died. There was no bitterness in his voice, just matter-of-fact acceptance. Our uncle took us in, but he was more interested in our trust fund than our welfare. I started coding at 16, built my first profitable app at 18. By 23, I had enough to buy us independence. Naomi studied him in the fluorescent hospital lighting that softened his sharp features. You gave up your youth to take care of her. I gave up nothing, he corrected. I gained purpose. Meanwhile, preparations for the Horizon anniversary continued. With Harrison's focus divided, he'd reluctantly ceded more control to Naomi. She worked tirelessly, determined to prove herself worthy of the opportunity. Regardless of how it had come about, 14 days before the event, Rebecca was finally released from the hospital. Harrison insisted on taking her to his penthouse where he could monitor her recovery, which left the final event planning entirely in Naomi's hands. I trust your judgment, he told her during a brief meeting at Sweet Reverie after hours. Admission hung between them, significant in its simplicity. That's a change, Naomi replied, sliding a box of experimental desserts across the counter. Try these at home. They're not on the final menu yet, but I think they capture what you're looking for. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, lingering longer than necessary. The air between them felt charged, complicated by weeks of shared vulnerability and growing respect. Naomi Harrison began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. I've been thinking about what happens after the event. Her pulse quickened. Professionally, you mean? Not entirely. His eyes held hers, searching. I've come to value your perspective, your honesty. It's refreshing. The bakery's warm, sugar-scented atmosphere suddenly felt too intimate. Naomi stepped back, creating distance. Harrison's eye, the moment shattered as Javier burst through the kitchen door, his normally cheerful face tense with worry. Naomi, you need to see this. He thrust his tablet toward her, open to an industry blog. The headline made her stomach drop. Horizon anniversary disaster in the making. Sources say Reed has lost his edge. The article detailed supposed inside information about production problems with Horizon's new device, questioning Harrison's leadership and specifically mentioning the outsourced local bakery. Handling the anniversary is another example of corner cutting. Harrison's expression hardened as he read the vulnerability of moments before, vanishing behind his executive mask. Victoria, he muttered. She's been pushing for a board takeover for months. This mentions Sweet Reverie by name, Naomi said, scanning the text. They're portraying me as some catrate replacement for a proper catering service. It's a hit piece, nothing more. Harrison took the tablet, his eyes darkening as he continued reading. But the timing is deliberate. If the anniversary fails, Victoria will have the leverage she needs with the board, and my bakery gets dragged through the mud in the process. Naomi fought to keep her voice steady. Can't afford this kind of publicity, Harrison. Neither can I. He paced the small space, energy radiating from him. The event is 2 weeks away, and suddenly we're under a microscope. Harrison stopped pacing, determination replacing anxiety. We exceed expectations. Make this event so spectacular that no one remembers the controversy. Naomi laughed without humor. Just like that? Wave a magic wand and create perfection? No magic, just us. He moved closer, intensity in his gaze. You're brilliant at what you do, Naomi. And despite what this article suggests, so am I together. We can silence the critics. Together, she repeated, testing the word. The next 10 days became a blur of activity. Naomi practically lived at the Horizon test kitchen, perfecting each element of the complex dessert menu. Harrison divided his time between Rebecca's care, company damage control, and late nights helping Naomi fine-tune the event experience. These midnight sessions revealed yet another side of Harrison, one with unexpected creativity and a dry wit that emerged when his corporate persona slipped. He brought engineering precision to her artistic vision, while she taught him to embrace imperfection as part of authenticity. It doesn't need to be flawless, she explained one night. demonstrating how a deliberately asymmetrical chocolate decoration created more visual interest. Perfect is boring. It's the unexpected touches that people remember. Like cake frosting on an expensive suit? He asked, the corner of his mouth lifting in a rare smile. Exactly like that, she replied, their eyes meeting in shared amusement. At how far they'd come? 4 days before the event, disaster struck. Naomi arrived at the Horizon kitchen to find the refrigeration system had malfunctioned overnight. Weeks of preparation, delicate chocolate work, pre-made bases, and specialized components had been destroyed by the heat. Everything's ruined, she whispered, surveying the devastation. Melted chocolate, collapsed mousses, spoiled creams, nothing had survived. When Harrison arrived minutes later, having rushed over after her panicked call, he didn't speak. He simply surveyed the damage, his expression unreadable. I can't recreate all of this in 4 days, Naomi said, fighting tears of frustration. It's impossible. Nothing's impossible, Harrison replied, rolling up his sleeves. Just challenging. What do we tackle first? Naomi stared at him in disbelief. I wasn't always a CEO. Picked up an apron from a nearby hook. Before college, I worked in a restaurant kitchen for 2 years. I can follow directions, and I learn quickly. This isn't cooking burgers, Naomi. Warned, then teach me. The simplicity of his offer stunned her, and so began the most improbable 72 hours of Naomi's life. They worked in tandem, breaking only for short naps on the office couch down the hall. Harrison proved a quick study, his precision and focus translating well to the technical aspects of pastry work. During one rare break, sharing coffee as dawn broke outside the kitchen windows, Harrison confessed, I haven't felt this alive in years, since before Elisa died, maybe even before that. Baking has always been that for me, Naomi replied, exhaustion making her more honest than she might. Otherwise, it's creation and science and art all at once. It matters, even though people think it's frivolous. Nothing that brings joy is frivolous, Harrison said quietly. That's what I lost sight of at work and life. Everything became about metrics, and success, and control. Is that why you were such an ass when we first met? Naomi asked, the question softened by her teasing tone. Harrison laughed, the sound echoing in the empty kitchen. Partly. Mostly I was terrified. The product launch was flawed, the board was breathing down my neck, and then this beautiful woman with flower in her hair destroyed my last illusion of control. Beautiful, Naomi echoed, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting. Undeniably. His gaze held hers, no pretense or performance left between them. And the most infuriating, talented, compassionate person I've met in years. The air between them thickened with possibility. Harrison leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. Instead, Naomi closed the distance, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of coffee, exhaustion, and something unexpectedly sweet hope. When they parted, reality crashed back. The refrigeration failure wasn't an accident, Harrison said, reluctance in his voice. Security footage shows someone tampering with the system. Victoria's making her move. Naomi straightened, new determination flooding her. Then we don't just succeed, we triumph. Are you with me? Harrison's answer was, another kiss. This one a promise. Always. As dawn brightened to morning, they returned to their work with renew. Add purpose. Two unlikely allies united against those who had underestimated them both. Asterisk, a perfect blend the night of Horizon Technologies. 5th anniversary gala arrived with an electric anticipation. The Venusiadel's historic Olympic. Hotel glowed with subtle blue lighting that complemented the elegant gray and silver decor. At the center of it all stood the dessert display, a breathtaking multi-tiered installation that told the story of Horizon's journey through flavor and design. Naomi, dressed in a midnight blue gown that Javier had insisted she borrow from his sister, watched nervously as the first guests approached her creation. Harrison stood nearby, impeccable in his tuxedo, quietly speaking with board members. It's magnificent, whispered Rebecca, who had insisted on attending despite her brother's concerns. Her recovery was evident in her bright eyes and the touch of color in her cheeks. You've saved him, you know. The event, you mean? Naomi asked, adjusting a chocolate decoration that had tilted slightly. My brother, Rebecca corrected. I haven't seen him like this. Present, engaged, actually smiling since Eliza died. Before Naomi could respond, Victoria Chen approached. Her smile, sharp as a blade. Quite the spectacle, she said, eyeing the dessert display. Let's hope it tastes as good as it looks. Why don't you find out? Harrison appeared beside them, offering Victoria the first plate. His confidence was unwavering, though Naomi knew the stakes couldn't be higher. Victoria took a deliberate bite of the signature dessert, a complex creation that harmonized, horizons gray and blue in a natural, elegant presentation. Her expression remained neutral, but Naomi caught the flicker of surprise in her eyes. Acceptable, she conceded, before moving away to join a group of investors. As the evening progressed, response to the desserts was anything but acceptable. Guests raved, photographs circulated on social media, and the event quickly became the talk of Seattle's tech community, not for controversy, but for innovation. The defining moment came during Harrison's speech. Standing before the gathered crowd, he departed from his prepared text. 5 years ago, I founded Horizon with a vision of technology that enhances human connection. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of the human part of that equation. His gaze found Naomi in the crowd. It took an accident involving cake frosting and an extraordinary baker to remind me that perfection isn't the goal, authenticity is, he went on to announce. Not only the successful recalibration of their new product, but a corporate initiative, supporting small businesses and artisans throughout Seattle, with Sweet Reverie as their first partner. Later, as the celebration wound down, Harrison found Naomi on the hotel's rooftop terrace, stargazing above the city lights. So, he said, joining her at the railing, was it worth it? Working with the arrogant suit who ruined your day? Naomi smiled, remembering their first disastrous meeting. Surprisingly, yes, though he turned out to be not nearly as awful as I initially thought. High praise, Harrison laughed, taking her hand. The board is unanimously behind the new direction. Victoria's allies have fallen silent, and Sweet Reverie has bookings for the next 6 months. Success by any measure? Naomi agreed. Not quite any measure, Harrison replied, suddenly serious. There's one more thing I need to know. He turned to face her fully. Now that the professional obligation is complete, would you consider having dinner with me? Just as no business. Number crisis. No obligation. Naomi considered him this complex man who had entered her life as an antagonist and become something entirely different. I think I'd like that, she said finally. Just dinner, he clarified. I'm not presuming. Naomi silenced him with a kiss, sweet and certain. I know exactly who you are now, Harrison read. No presumptions necessary. Above them, stars scattered. Across the Seattle sky like sugar crystals on dark chocolate. Below, the city pulsed with possibility. And between them, something new had been created. A perfect blend of two seemingly incompatible ingredients, transformed by the right circumstances into something unexpectedly wonderful. 2 new beginnings, Harrison whispered against her lips. Happy accidents, Naomi added, thinking of the frosting that had changed everything. Some recipes, after all, are discovered rather than planned, the most delicious outcomes. Born from unexpected collisions and the courage to see beauty in what initially appears to be disaster.